Hi y'all, this is a quick tutorial video on the quiz review. Just a reminder, your quiz is going to be tomorrow and it's 3 questions long. It looks very similar to this review. If you are struggling, I want you to try to fill out as much as you can. I will give you as much partial credit as I can depending on what you can show me you can do, okay? For number 1, it says find f of g of x, and for some reason when I copied this to my iPad, it didn't show the function, so I'm just going to write those in, but they're already on your review. So f of x g of x. Okay, and it only wants you to find the composition in one direction. You don't have to do it in both. It just wants f of g of x. So I'm going to take f, which is that 5x plus 2, and I'm going to substitute the entire g of x in there wherever I see that x. Okay, so I've just substituted the x that is here and I've replaced it with that entire g of x function. Okay, so now I'm going to distribute and simplify. 5 times 1/3 x is just going to be 5 over 3x, and then 5 times -1 gets us -5, and then we've got that plus 2 there. So now you're just going to combine the -5 and the plus 2. And that is your answer, okay? I saw a lot of you in class today trying to find an inverse or trying to simplify. This is all you have to do. Don't think too hard on that one, okay? All right, number 2. You're given 2 functions and you're asked to confirm if they're inverses using compositions. So the idea here is to find the composition in both directions. If both of those compositions are equal to x, that means that your 2 functions are inverses. If you do the composition, one of them is x plus 4 and the other one is x, they are not inverses. Even if you get both of them are x plus 4, they're still not inverses because they both have to be equal to x, okay? I'm just going to write out the functions that are missing on mine. All right, so I'm going to find f of g of x first. It doesn't really matter which one you find first. So f is my outer function. So where I see an x there, I'm going to replace it with my entire g of x function. So I'm replacing this x with my entire g of x. And I'm going to simplify. So right away I can see this -5 and plus 5 are going to cancel. So you get 4x divided by 4. And then we can get rid of the 4's that are here, and this just turns into x, so that one's good. But I can't just stop there. I have to check and see if the other composition in the other direction is also x. So I'm going to find g of f of x. So I'm going to substitute the x that's here with the entire f of x function. So the 4 on the outside of parentheses and the 4 on the bottom are going to cancel. And we're going to get x plus 5 minus 5. And then the positive and the -5 here are going to cancel. And I'm going to be left with x. Okay, so if you get to this point on your quiz and you stop and you don't explain why they are inverses or not, then you're only going to get about 3/4 of the credit for the question. To get full credit, you have to say something along the lines of f of g of x and g of f of x both have to be x in order for the functions to be inverses. If you want to write that in kind of like a shorthand, that's fine. Just don't tell me both compositions are x. You have to be more specific in what you mean, okay? So my shorthand way of writing it, I'm going to say f of g of x is the same thing as g of f of x, and both of those are equal to x, so f and g are inverses. If you don't want to write that exactly, that's fine, but something along those lines that's specific. Please include the f and the g functions and that they are equal to x, okay, when you compose them in both directions. Okay, the 3rd question on the back. This one wants you to calculate the inverse algebraically. I will say, I think that the one on the review is a little bit more difficult than the one that's actually going to be on your quiz. Okay, these are going to be some really ugly numbers. So first thing I want to do is replace that r of x with a y. They mean the same thing, so I can just make that replacement. Okay, then my first step is to interchange x and y. So I'm going to swap my x value and my y. Okay, now my goal is to get that fourth root by itself so I can eventually get rid of the radical. So I'm going to move everything that's in front of it and behind it so I can get it by itself. So I'm going to add 3 to both sides first. Okay, now I need to get that 1/9 that's in the front of the fourth root of y plus 4 away from the radical. So there's two ways you can do this. You can either divide both sides by 1/9, or you can multiply both sides by 9. Both of those arithmetic operations are going to do the same thing. It's just whatever you're more comfortable with. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 9 because I don't want to deal with the fractions on the other side. So I'm going to multiply this side by 9, and I'm going to multiply this side by 9. So this 1/9 and this 9 on the outside are going to cancel, and you're going to distribute the 9 that's outside those parentheses into the parentheses. So we get 9x plus 27 equals the fourth root of y plus 4. Now that I have that fourth root by itself, I want to get rid of it. So I'm going to raise both sides of the equation to the fourth power. Whenever you have a number inside of that little like check mark of the radical and you want to get rid of the radical, you're just going to raise it to whatever exponent you see inside of that little check mark, okay? So this and this are going to cancel. And I'm just left with y plus 4 and no radical anymore. Okay, and my very last step, I want to get the y by itself, so I'm going to subtract 4 from both sides. Be careful here. Since you have an exponent of a 4 and you have that 9x plus 27 in parentheses, you cannot just subtract 4 from the 27. You need to keep that minus 4 on the outside completely. So the minus 4 should go after your exponent of 4, okay? Last little thing to get like full credit on this question, make sure that you write it in the correct notation. So the function name that it gives you is r of x. So when you're writing your answer, you're going to put r inverse or the exponent -1x, and then go ahead and write what you got for y. Okay, so that is it. If you have any questions really quickly before the quiz, you can ask me. And then after the quiz, we're going to work on some SAT questions. So study for your quiz, do these problems maybe once or twice so you can get comfortable with it, and good luck tomorrow.